All right. Welcome, everyone. So glad to have you here. You guys sent in some really interesting stuff from how to talk to anyone English tips. I'm excited to dig into it.
Yeah, it looks like we have a lot to unpack.
We do, we do. And for this deep dive, we really want to pull out those nuggets of wisdom, those practical tips to help everyone listening speak English more confidently.
Yeah, definitely. It can be tough to navigate all the nuances of conversation, even in your native language. But these tips, they really get into the nitty-gritty of how to make those interactions smoother, more engaging, whether it's with friends or in a professional setting.
Exactly. So think of this as your toolkit for better communication.
I like that, a toolkit. Because it really does touch on so many different aspects. I mean, we'll be looking at the impact of body language, how to really listen and understand, and ways to start and end conversations gracefully. Plus, we'll delve into the power of asking the right questions, finding common ground, using humor, and of course, building confidence and speaking with respect. All essential stuff, really.
Absolutely. The goal is to give you actionable strategies, things you can implement right away
Right.
to make those conversations flow more naturally and confidently,
Wow.
not just a bunch of theory.
Exactly. And the great thing about this source is how it brings those often abstract ideas down to earth. It's about understanding the principles, but then having those concrete tips to apply them in real life situations.
Well, the source jumps right into body language.
Yeah.
And, it makes this really powerful point about how much of what we communicate isn't actually spoken.
Oh, yeah. That's a classic communication concept, but always worth revisiting. They even cite research that suggests up to 70 to 90% of our communication is nonverbal. That's huge.
It's amazing, isn't it? It
Yeah.
really underscores the idea that it's not just what you say, but how you say it. And that includes your whole physical presence. It's like setting the stage before you even utter a word.
Exactly. And they nicely break down these nonverbal cues, starting with eye contact.
Well, eye contact, that could be a tricky one.
It is. You don't want to stare people down, but you also don't want to seem shifty-eyed.
All right, you want to strike that balance, right?
Yeah.
Too little eye contact and you come across as disinterested or maybe even untrustworthy.
Exactly. But too much, and it can make the other person feel like they're under a microscope.
And the source offers this really handy guideline suggesting about 50–60% eye contact for those casual conversations. It shows engagement, it builds trust. But yeah, you got to remember those natural breaks. Look away occasionally just to avoid that feeling of intensity.
It's all about that delicate dance of engagement and respect for personal space.
Definitely. And then they talk about posture, which is something I'm always trying to be mindful of.
Posture is so important. It's almost like a physical manifestation of your inner state, projecting confidence and openness.
Right. It can literally change the way you feel, too. Like if you're slouching, you might start to feel less confident, less energetic.
Absolutely. As they point out, slouching can convey that sense of disinterest or lack of self-assurance, especially when you're meeting someone for the first time. That initial visual impression can really make a difference.
It sets the tone, doesn't it? The good posture, standing or sitting up straight, it just projects this image of confidence and engagement.
Exactly. And even just leaning in slightly, not too aggressively, but just enough to show you're present, it reinforces that sense of interest in what the other person has to say.
It's like saying, I'm here with you in this conversation.
Exactly. And then we get to facial expressions, which are so powerful, they can really make or break a conversation.
Oh, totally. Like a genuine smile, it's contagious. It can instantly disarm someone, put them at ease, and create a warmer atmosphere.
A smile is such a universal symbol of friendliness and openness.
And the source makes a great point about empathetic expressions, too, mirroring the other person's emotions.
That's really key for establishing rapport. It's like you're saying, I get you, I'm on the same page.
And it goes the other way, too. Like being mindful of those negative facial expressions, the frowns, the eye rolls, even if they're unintentional.
You got to be careful with those because they can send the wrong message, create a sense of distance.
Right. Even if your words are saying one thing. A negative expression can contradict that.
It's all about congruence, aligning your facial expressions with the overall tone of the conversation.
Definitely. You wouldn't want to be smiling broadly if someone's sharing something serious or personal.
Exactly. You got to match the emotional energy. And then there's hand gestures, another interesting area.
Oh, yeah, I use hand gestures all the time. Sometimes I don't even realize I'm doing it.
It's natural, right? It can really emphasize your points, bring energy to your delivery.
Yeah, it's like you're painting a picture with your words and actions.
Exactly. But there's a balance, right? The source cautions against those overly large or excessive gestures, which can become distracting.
Yeah, you don't want your hands to steal the show.
The key is to keep those gestures natural, flowing with your speech. They should enhance your words, not overpower them.
Right, they're there to support, not distract. And then the source brings it all together, emphasizing the importance of all these nonverbal cues working in harmony.
It's about that overall package, that coherence between your words and actions.
Right, because if your body language is saying one thing and your words are saying another, it can create this disconnect.
People pick up on those inconsistencies consciously or subconsciously.
Might not be able to put their finger on it, but they'll sense something's off.
Exactly. And it's crucial to remember all these nonverbal cues, they're not universal.
Oh, yeah. What might be perfectly acceptable in one culture could be totally misinterpreted in another.
Cultural context matters a lot. A gesture that's friendly in one place could be offensive somewhere else.
So, especially when we were talking about speaking English globally, being aware of those cultural differences is so important.
It's about being respectful and avoiding those potential misunderstandings.
All right, so we've talked about how we present ourselves, but a conversation's a two-way street. And that brings us to the crucial skill of active listening.
Oh, active listening, this is so fundamental, but it's something that many people struggle with.
It is. And the source makes it clear, active listening, it's just as important as speaking effectively.
It's about truly engaging with the other person, making them feel heard, understood, and valued.
When you know someone's really listening, it just encourages you to open up more.
It creates that safe space for sharing. And one of the tips they offer, which I thought was really practical, is about giving feedback while someone's speaking.
Oh, yeah, like those little verbal cues, the I see, or even a simple nod.
Exactly. It shows you're actively following along, but without interrupting their flow.
It's that delicate balance, isn't it? Letting the other person know you're engaged, but not cutting them off.
Absolutely. And they also stress the importance of avoiding interruptions altogether.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
We've all been there, right? You get so excited about something, you jump in before the other person's finished their thought.
It happens. But being mindful of that, letting the speaker fully express themselves, that's a sign of respect.
It shows you value what they have to say. And another great technique they talk about is asking follow-up questions.
Oh, yeah, this is a game changer.
It really is. It shows you're not just passively listening, you're genuinely interested in delving deeper.
It's like saying, tell me more. I want to hear your perspective.
Exactly. And those follow-up questions can keep the conversation flowing naturally, too. You avoid those awkward silences when you're both trying to figure out what to say next.
You're building on what's already been shared, creating a more connected dialogue.
And remember, those non-verbal cues are important in listening, too. Maintaining eye contact, nodding, even leaning in slightly.
They all reinforce that sense of presence and engagement. The opposite, like constantly checking your phone, that sends a pretty clear message that you're not fully invested.
Exactly. It's like saying, I'm only half listening. And then there's that crucial element of empathy.
Oh, empathy, that's huge.
It's not just about hearing the words. It's about understanding the emotions and intentions behind them.
That's where paying attention to tone of voice, body language, facial expressions, it all comes together.
You're picking up on those subtle cues, getting a deeper understanding of what the person's truly communicating.
And responding with empathy, acknowledging their feelings, like saying, it sounds like that was a really difficult experience, or I can see why you'd feel that way.
Those empathetic responses can really strengthen the connection and make the other person feel truly heard and validated.
It shows you're not just listening to their words, you're connecting with them on an emotional level.
Exactly. So, to sum up, active listening, it's a skill that takes practice, but the rewards are so worth it. It strengthens relationships, it builds trust, and it just makes conversations more fulfilling.
Now let's move on to an area that can feel a bit intimidating for some people, starting and ending conversations.
Oh, yeah, those can be tricky moments, especially with new people.
You don't want to come on too strong,
Hmm.
but you also don't want to fade into the background.
It's all about finding that sweet spot. And when it comes to starting a conversation, the source suggests keeping it light and easy.
Yeah, those simple, non-threatening openers, like a friendly, "Hi, how's your day going?"
Yeah.
Or even a genuine compliment,
Compliments are great, they make people feel good, and they show you're paying attention.
like noticing something you genuinely like about their outfit, or maybe commenting on their insight on a topic.
It's a way of acknowledging something positive about them, which can be a really nice way to start a conversation.
And in social settings, making a comment about your surroundings or the event itself.
It's like finding that instant common ground. Have you been to this event before? Or what did you think of the speaker?
It gives you something to build on, right?
Yeah.
And the source also mentions the power of small talk, which sometimes gets a bad rap, but it really is important.
It is. It's not about being superficial. It's about establishing that initial rapport, making the other person feel comfortable.
It's that warm-up before you maybe delve into deeper topics.
Exactly. And then when it comes to ending a conversation, you want to leave a positive impression.
Right. You don't want to just abruptly walk away or disappear into thin air.
The source suggests expressing appreciation, like, "It was great talking to you. I hope we can chat again soon."
It's a nice way to acknowledge the interaction and leave the door open for future conversations.
Especially in social settings, that idea of staying in touch can be really helpful.
And if the conversation has naturally run its course, it's perfectly fine to take the lead in ending it.
I've really enjoyed our conversation, but I need to catch up with a few other people.
A polite way to signal your departure without being rude.
Exactly. And that sincere thank you for the great chat, it goes a long way.
It does. It leaves that positive final note.
It's like putting a nice bow on the conversation.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about how to keep those conversations flowing, how to really get people talking. And that brings us to the magic of open-ended questions.
Oh, this is a favorite technique of mine.
Mine too. The source does a great job of explaining how these types of questions encourage people to elaborate, to share more than just a one-word answer.
Yeah, it's the difference between "did you have a good weekend?" which often gets a simple yes or no in response.
Versus, what did you do over the weekend? Or what was the highlight of your weekend?
Those open-ended questions, they invite a story, they spark a conversation.
And they give you so much more to work with. And as the source points out, they can reveal so much more about the person's personality, their interests, their opinions.
It's like opening a window into their world. You get a glimpse of what makes them tick.
And it shows you're genuinely interested, right? You're not just going through the motions. You actually care about their perspective.
It's about creating that deeper level of engagement, going beyond those surface level interactions.
And it makes the conversation flow more naturally, doesn't it? One thoughtful answer leads to another question, and so on.
You're building on each other's thoughts, creating a more dynamic exchange.
You're also avoiding those awkward silences, which can be a conversation killer.
Absolutely. But the source makes a good point about being mindful of the other person's comfort level. You wouldn't want to jump into deeply personal questions too soon, especially with someone you just met.
Right. You want to start with those more general, open-ended questions, and then, as you build rapport, maybe delve a bit deeper.
It's about gauging the situation, being sensitive to their boundaries.
So the key takeaway here is to make a conscious effort to ask those open-ended questions, the ones that invite people to share their experiences and their thoughts.
It's a simple shift in your questioning style that can make a huge difference in how engaging and insightful those conversations become.
And building on that idea of connecting with others, finding common ground is another powerful technique.
Oh, yeah, finding that shared ground, that common thread, it creates an instant bond.
It makes people feel more comfortable, like they're on the same wavelength.
And the source emphasizes starting with active listening, paying attention to those subtle clues about their hobbies, their interests.
Like, if someone mentions they enjoy hiking, you could ask about their favorite trails. It shows you were listening and that you're curious about something they enjoy.
Exactly. And they also suggest focusing on those more universal topics, things like family, food, travel, current events.
Those are things most people can relate to, no matter their background. What's your favorite cuisine? Or have you traveled anywhere interesting lately?
It's a good starting point to find those shared experiences.
And if you want to go a bit deeper, ask about their passions or personal interests. What inspired you to get into that hobby? Or what do you love most about it?
Those questions can really open up a conversation.
Now, the source also touches on finding common ground with people from different backgrounds or cultures.
That can be a bit more challenging, but it's so important in today's world.
It is. And the key, as they point out, is to approach those interactions with respect and an open mind.
Absolutely. You don't want to make assumptions or rely on stereotypes.
You want to be genuinely curious about their perspective, even if it's different from your own.
And focusing on those shared human experiences, things that connect us regardless of our differences.
Like if someone mentions a cultural tradition you're unfamiliar with, asking about it respectfully, showing a willingness to learn.
How did you get involved in that? Or what does it mean to you? Those kinds of questions show genuine interest.
And focusing on those shared values, things like family, community, or a love of learning, it can bridge those cultural divides.
It's about finding that common humanity, those universal truths that connect us all.
All right, let's inject a bit of fun into this conversation.
Yeah.
The source also talks about using humor to build rapport.
Humor. It's a great icebreaker. It can lighten the mood and create a more relaxed atmosphere.
A shared laugh can really bring people together.
It's like an instant connection. But they do emphasize that it needs to be lighthearted, non-offensive, and inclusive.
Absolutely. You don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable or excluded.
A harmless comment about a shared situation, like the weather or a long line you're both waiting in, can create that sense of camaraderie.
And they mention self-deprecating humor, making a gentle joke about yourself.
That can be a good way to show humility and make others feel at ease.
But it's got to be done tastefully, right?
Yeah.
Not too self-deprecating. You don't want to undermine your own confidence.
Exactly. And context is everything, as they point out. What might be funny with close friends might not be appropriate in a professional setting.
You got to read the room, so to speak. And of course, the content of the humor matters a lot.
No offensive jokes, no stereotypes. It's got to be respectful and inclusive.
And timing is key too, right? A joke delivered at the wrong moment can fall flat.
It's all about reading those social cues, knowing when it's appropriate to inject a bit of humor.
So humor can be a great tool for building relationships, but it needs to be used thoughtfully and with awareness of the situation.
Agreed. Now, let's address something that many English language learners struggle with: building confidence in their speaking abilities.
This is so common. Feeling self-conscious, afraid of making mistakes, it can really hold people back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the source emphasizes that confidence. It's built over time with practice and the right mindset.
It's not going to happen overnight. It's a process. And they suggest practicing in those low-pressure situations first, like talking with friends or family.
Creating a safe space to experiment, to get comfortable with speaking without the fear of judgment.
And then gradually increasing the challenge. Maybe trying to use English in everyday situations like ordering food or asking for directions.
It's about stretching your comfort zone little by little.
And that fear of making mistakes, it's so real. But as the source points out, mistakes are a natural part of learning.
They're inevitable, and in a way, they're valuable. They show you where you need to improve.
And most people will appreciate your effort, even if you make a few grammatical errors.
They'll focus on the message, not the minor mistakes.
The source also recommends those relaxation techniques, like deep breathing exercises, before speaking situations.
Calming those nerves, getting centered.
And positive self-talk, reminding yourself of your strengths, your progress.
You've come so far. Celebrate those wins.
It's about focusing on what you're doing well, not just the areas where you need to improve.
And remember, the goal is communication, not perfection.
It's about connecting with others, expressing yourself, and enjoying the journey of learning.
Exactly. And finally, let's talk about the importance of using polite and respectful language.
This is fundamental. It shows consideration for others, and it can really make a difference in how people perceive you.
It sets the tone for the entire interaction, and the source starts by emphasizing the importance of your tone of voice.
It can completely change the meaning of your words, can't it? You can say the nicest things, but if your tone is harsh or sarcastic, it'll come across negatively.
Absolutely. It's about matching your tone to the situation, being mindful of how you're coming across.
And they highlight the power of those simple words, please, thank you, and sorry.
Those are magic words. They really go a long way.
They show gratitude, they show respect, and they can smooth over any bumps in the conversation.
Would you mind passing the salt, please? It just sounds so much nicer than, give me the salt.
It does. And when you're making requests, the source advises using softer, more indirect language, especially in formal settings.
Like, would it be possible to? Or, may I ask? It shows you're not demanding or presumptuous.
And those nonverbal cues, they come into play here too. Maintaining eye contact, having an open posture.
They reinforce those polite words, showing you're genuinely engaged and respectful.
But it's important to find that balance, isn't it? Being polite doesn't mean being overly formal or stiff.
Exactly. You still want to be yourself, be authentic, but in a way that shows consideration for others.
And in professional settings, using those appropriate titles and last names, it shows respect for the workplace hierarchy.
It demonstrates professionalism.
So speaking with respect, it creates a more positive and collaborative environment where everyone feels valued and heard.
It sets the stage for better communication all around.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into talking to anyone in English, it's clear that effective communication is so much more than just the words we use.
It's a tapestry of verbal and nonverbal cues, active listening, thoughtful questioning, and a foundation of politeness and respect.
It's about connecting with others on a deeper level, building trust, and making those interactions more meaningful and enjoyable.
And as you go out and practice these tips, remember that it's a journey, it takes time and effort, but the rewards are so worth it.
So I want to leave you with this thought. Think about a recent conversation you had, maybe one that didn't go quite as smoothly as you'd hoped.
Now imagine applying just one or two of the techniques we've discussed today.
How might that have changed the dynamics? How might it have made the conversation more engaging, more productive, or simply more enjoyable?
It's something to reflect on, how these seemingly small changes can have a big impact on the way we connect with others.
That's it for our deep dive today. Thanks for listening, and keep those conversations flowing.
Until next time.